Greetings and welcome to another session of Meet a CHM Family Member. Tonight is a special night. I have a dear friend with me. She is a carrier for Choroideremia and has affected children, and her name is Jan Laudenbach. Hey Jan, how are you tonight?
Great, Cory. Nice to talk to you.
It's so great to see you again. With the cancellation of the conferences, I miss seeing my CHM family members in person, so it's good to at least get together virtually.
Correct. That's good.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? I know you're from Minnesota, but kind of give us the rundown. Where you're from and what you do for a living and what you do for hobbies and interests and things like that.
Well, I am now a retired nurse. With COVID, my job got eliminated, so I've been retired now since August, and I'm married to my husband, John. We've been married, it'll be 42 years in June. And we have 3 kids, all married. The first one, Amanda, will be 40 this year. And she has 3 adopted children with her husband, Darren. And then Maria is 30, she'll be 36, I believe. And she is 36. And she has 2 children. And then Matt is my son, and he is married and is expecting a baby, hopefully this weekend.
Yes, as a grandparent myself, you gotta love it when the new ones are coming in. It's great.
Yes, it's wonderful.
Spoil more kids. So now, interestingly enough, it wasn't Matt who initially was having symptoms, but it was first spotted in one of your...
Amanda, in my oldest daughter. She was going through a physical for her going to 9th grade. So we went to an eye doctor in Rockford, Illinois, and she looked at Amanda's eyes and goes, I think you have an eye disease. It might even be choroideremia. And then so she sits me in the chair and she goes, I think you have the eye disease. And then she puts Maria in the chair. And then she goes, do you have any sons? And Matt was out in the waiting room. So we brought Matt in. And she goes, oh, I can't tell you for sure that this is choroideremia, but I'm telling you, you have some retina problem.
That is amazing that she said choroideremia right away.
I know. And I guess I didn't hear it through Mandy and Maria until she said it to Matt, because I knew what it was with boys. And it was 2 weeks before we moved back to Minnesota. So the kids were all born in Minnesota. We moved for 6 years to Rockford, Illinois, and we were moving back. And that's when this all started. So then we came back to Minnesota, and it was probably 5 or 6 months before we could get into the University of Minnesota. And then they looked at, and they didn't know it was choroideremia. So then they were calling it gyrate atrophy and calling it all different things. And so finally, Matt didn't really get diagnosed until his senior year in high school.
So it was a good almost 10 years.
Exactly.
Wow, that is amazing. So, I mean, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but I'm gonna get into the questions a little bit. How has CHM personally affected you?
Well, in the beginning, Matt has, ever since we can remember, has had night blindness. And they would play night games and he would smack into a tree just right out of the blue. And so we at first thought it was just a clumsy kid. But then we started watching and we would see him go down the hall at night and he would put out his hand to feel his way to get to his bedroom. Or if he was doing the steps, he would seriously feel things so he could go through. So that's how we started to know. And so because of that, wherever we sent Matt, he always had a flashlight. Everybody knew he couldn't see in the dark. And we treated it like a night blindness illness. He even drove. He went through driver's ed and drove, but we wouldn't let him drive at night.
Yeah. Boy, that running into the tree, I literally feel your pain.
I bet you do.
Oh yeah, been there. So now, besides the flashlight, what other types of adjustments did you do for him? Did you working with his teachers or?
We would try with telling his teachers. What happened is, though, when he was in sports, when he was in 5th, 6th, and 7th grade, when the coaches heard that he had an eye problem, they didn't always want to put him into the game. So a lot of times it was hard for John and I, because he would be standing on the side ready to go in, and they wouldn't put him in because they didn't want to cause a problem with his eyes.
Yeah, I mean, and I can understand that they're trying to be safe too. So,
but it's hard.
Oh yeah, I'm trying to phrase this properly, but did you have any feelings of guilt when Matt was diagnosed, or anything, along those lines, or did you just?
There was a lot of guilt, and until we went to the University of Iowa and talked to Dr. Stone, who looked me in the face and said, no, there wasn't nothing you could do different. It's not taking any medication. It's not doing anything different. It's something that's an X chromosome, and you just happen to be the person who had it.
My that's something I always wonder about with the moms, because I really, it's one thing to have this, but to watch a loved one with it, it's got to be tough. I mean, I know my own mother. I told her, I don't know how many times, Mom, I know if you had a choice, I wouldn't have this.
Well, and Dr. Stone did such a nice job of, when we went to the appointment with him, which was in I think it was the fall of 2006. The whole family went, and he talked to all of us, and he said to the girls, you've got choices. So Amanda and Darren adopted kids, so they chose not to have kids. And then Maria and Ben did go on to Chicago and looked into in vitro and even trying to see if they could get the embryo that didn't have the disease. Ended up having their kids naturally, and then she tested Eli. He was young when they tested him. Mm-hmm. So it's affected the whole family. It definitely has.
Yeah, it factors into so many things that most people don't consider on a day-to-day basis unless you're living with it,
Yes.
So you've been to several conferences.
I have.
What is your favorite part about going to the CRF conference?
Well, it's nice to sit and watch how everybody interacts. That first night when you meet around the bar and you're just talking to people, and some people have their dogs, some people have their canes, and you just see the family. It's like a family atmosphere. And then when you get on the elevator and you go anywhere, everybody just talks to each other, and you get to the meetings. And I know that for us, the Denver meeting was pretty special with all the doctors sitting up there. And Maria even said she felt like she was at Choroideremia 101, because she said, I learned everything from the basis. And she goes, that's what we need, is to hear from them, what they're doing and what's going on in the world of choroideremia.
And that kind of segues into the next question. And I agree with you. That too is my favorite part. It's a family reunion,
mm-hmm.
In my mind. That's what it's always been like. But so now, how do you feel about the research that's currently going on with CHM?
Well, I'm a research nurse at heart. So that's when Matt got diagnosed. I went right in and got a hold of, like we've talked before, I got a hold of Dr. Mack to find out, what's going on, what do we need to do? And so I think that's a big part of what we are backing. And that's why we do our annual Thanksgiving Day walk for choroideremia. We actually do it. It's called a Run for a Reason, and you can send your money in for whatever you want. We have 4 things that we're doing, but you can feel free to do it. This year it was tough because everybody had to walk on their own and then send pictures in of them walking. But it's been good, and we've been able to raise some money to get some, good research going.
Yeah, you have been one of our long time. Gosh, how many years have you done? 9 years?
Something like that, yeah.
Something like 8 or 9 years, I think, in a row that you've done that, which is just amazing. Yeah. And it's been fun from my end, watching how it grows a little bit every year. It seems,
And even when this year was a tough year, I heard people say, but we want Matt to be able to see, and we want to do, if we can move forward. They kind of all have gone aboard, and everybody wants to see that we do well.
It does take a village. One person can't do this. So
No.
it's wonderful. It's really cool. Every year around Thanksgiving time, I start getting in all these checks, and I'm like, oh, I remember that name, and I remember. It's almost like I know these people. It's really weird, The fundraising aspect is so important because it's really, research costs money. And you think about it, you've been a part of an organization that, 21 short years, and we've raised over $4 million towards research.
That's fabulous.
What does the CRF mean to you, and how has the CRF impacted your life and the life of your family?
Well, I think as we've started into the Choroideremia 101, as each one of the girls have come to the meetings and Jessica has been involved, it helps all of us ask questions and kind of, go forward on what we're doing. Matt had some skin, like you did, removed to do the stem cells. And now University of Iowa is, they've got a new wing, and they're doing all these things with robots. And it's exciting to find out from them where they're at, because we know we're part of that.
Yeah. And everything is, some of my friends kind of shudder at the thought when I tell them that, yeah, somewhere in the world, there are little Corys growing in Petri dishes.
Yeah, Matt said when they took the skin from him, he goes, do you want more? I can give you more,
Now, if they only needed my fat cells, that would be better.
I know, me too.
So now you've been you're a mom of 3, you're a carrier, you've got carrier daughter, you've got an affected son. For speaking to a young mom whose son just got diagnosed, what kind of life advice could you give them?
We've asked Matt, and he thinks that because we kept him as normal as possible, we put him in things, but we told people, and we just kind of, whatever he could do, he tried. There were very few things he didn't do because of his eyes. One I can remember was a church hayride, and I got there and it was real dark out, and they were supposed to climb up on the hay thing, and he looked at me and goes, I really don't want to do this. And I'm like, okay, but it's usually the night stuff that he didn't do. But so we've talked about this, when Matt was graduated from college, and he has 3 degrees. He studied abroad, and that's another thing he did. For 6 months, we sent him to Spain, and he met people. We made sure that he lived in a school. They can live in either houses or schools, and we preferred him in something where there was more people. So he stayed in the school, and then he would travel to Germany and the Canary Islands. And so after he graduated from college, he wanted to go back to Europe for 3 months. So he went with John for a month, me for a month, and then Jessica was his girlfriend at the time, and they traveled. So he has traveled a ton, and he's learned how to get in and out of trains and go across, and it's a learning curve. But I think that's what we do. That's what I would say. Keep it as normal as possible. Give them the tools to go forward, but also tell the people around them what's going on.
I think that is good advice. I remember, of course, when I was a teenager, obviously it was long before there was any research or anything really going on. And, I recall my mother didn't want me to get a job because she was so afraid of me getting hurt. I was studying martial arts for 6 months before I told her. Yeah, that wasn't it. She begrudgingly let me continue.
I think you need to be a kid, and I think the experience you have makes you who you are.
I agree. And I think that it's, obviously you grow up, you have this, and you know that there may be limitations, but at the same time, you shouldn't use that, it shouldn't limit your life. You adjust and you press on.
That's Matt's philosophy. Everybody has something. This is what I have.
I've said to other people before, I said, I've always viewed CHM, it's not a wall, it's a speed bump. It might slow me down a bit, it might divert me a bit, but it sure ain't gonna stop.
When Matt was in college, we talked to the school and they said they would give him more time for tests and stuff. And he's just said, no, I'm a good student. I could be probably better, but he just wanted to be normal. And he kind of is a normal kid.
Yeah. Although he's not a kid anymore.
I know. And he's having a kid. So we'll have to see how that goes.
Yeah, that's a whole new learning curve. Now, do you have any last words that you would like to, any last bit of advice or words or anything for the family?
No, I would basically say when you can go to the meetings, do it. When you can get together and walk with people and talk about it, it really helps. I mean, Matt's friends all know, and you probably know too, Cory, when you walk into like a church or something, you have to stop and get your bearings because it takes a little bit to go through it. And once everybody knows that, we kind of go in as a herd and then we stop and then we all proceed and Matt puts his hand on whatever shoulder or arm and goes through. So it to me is the more you talk about it, the easier it gets.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I would really, really like to thank you again, Jan, for agreeing to do this. This was fun.
Sure.
And hopefully it was nice to, kind of introduce you to the rest of the world and let let them know that meet more members of our CHM family as you go around. And thank you everyone for watching. Oh, and before I go, I have to say I would like to thank our sponsors, Biogen, Santen Technologies, and Spark Therapeutics, who are the ones that make this happen. They give us the funding so that we can do things like this. So again, Jan, I'd like to thank you very much. And hopefully we'll see you, it'll be 2022 in Rochester, New York. Currently.
That sounds great. And that sounds great.
They better not postpone it again. But thank you again for your support.
You're welcome.
For joining us. And we will, we'll see you on the internet at some point.
Well, you let me know. Take care.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye-bye.